1045, the team, we're joined by our friend from ESPN Buffalo, I guess is how I'll put this, even though he's way bigger than that lately. The man's breaking news all over the place. Mike Rodak with us. Mike, first things first, LeSean McCoy, did he meet with the DA? Did he not? Is he going to be charged? Will he? What's going on with this?
Yeah, that was a saga the other day, earlier this week when there was a report that he was going to meet with the DA, and there's a report that he wasn't, that I was called off. Because they're afraid of the media attention it was getting. And then eventually he ended up meeting. He was at the meeting. The DA was not. It was the assistant DA, some other people, prosecutors that are part of the office were part of that meeting. And that was not at the DA's office because they didn't want to attract the attention there. And it ended up being at his attorney's office. But there are still cameras there. It's Philadelphia. Their media is going to get after it. And, it's hard to tell exactly what they discussed in that meeting. It's unusual, certainly, for a defendant or a person who's being, a suspect in a case like this to meet with the DA before any charges are filed. That's certainly unusual for people I've talked to. But then you had the attorney come out right after and essentially say, Shady's not going to talk, and he's, maintaining his innocence is essentially what he said. So that was the latest in a long string of strange developments in this case, and it's been 3 full weeks now. It was 3 weeks ago this weekend when the actual fight happened in Philadelphia. So it's been a while, and still no decision on charges. I know there's a report Thursday, a couple reports Thursday actually out of Buffalo that said that Shady wasn't expecting to be charged, but from everything I've been told, there's been no word. There's been no decision from the DA's office, and his attorneys also have not been informed of any decision. So that might be more wishful thinking on Shady's part than anything else. So this is more than likely or overwhelmingly likely going to go into next week and perhaps longer. And we'll have to see what happens exactly. And even if he's not charged, it's important to remember that the NFL could still file some sort of discipline against them. They still have the power to do that. Roger Goodell has done whatever Roger Goodell wants to do, as we've seen with a lot of different cases now. So that's certainly something to keep in the back of your mind, even if he's not charged.
From a football perspective, what's the Bills' response to this? Are they looking harder at running back now at the Combine?
Naturally, yeah. I mean, if you ask them, they're going to say, we look at every position at the Combine, which is true. I mean, eventually the Combine is most useful for guys with medical issues. They can get their doctors to check out these guys, and it's also useful for players who have character concerns. And then, you have these interviews where you can sit down with players for 15 minutes. So across the board, those are the most useful players. It's less positional and more just trying to find guys with special issues that they have going on. So, yeah, in the Combine, no, they're probably not going to look at running backs more. They haven't looked at running backs more. But over the course of the draft, I think, yeah, you have to take a little bit of a keener eye. I know back at the Senior Bowl, Doug Whaley was on the radio talking about which positions they need to look at this offseason. He said basically every position. Then he said, yeah, running back, we probably don't need to add anybody. Well, a week later was when McCoy got arrested. So naturally, I think that changes. What you could also do is look in free agency, because you might need somebody. Let's say Shady's suspended, theoretically, hypothetically, for the first 4 games of the season. You might need somebody right away, and a draft pick might not be the best guy for that job. A guy like Bilal Powell kind of comes to mind, and down in New York. With the Jets, the Bills tried to sign him last year. If they had cut Fred Jackson last March, they most likely would have signed Bilal Powell. Once they kept Fred Jackson, Bilal Powell went back to the Jets. Well, he's free agent again. He knows Rex Ryan. He knows Anthony Lynn, the running backs coach. That would be a fit if the Bills can fit him under their salary cap. And that's the biggest issue here. They're not going to save any money. Well, you will save a small amount of money if Shady's suspended, but you're not going to save enough to sign a guy like Powell. So you need to find other ways to clear cap space and then sign a guy like Powell as insurance. So that's kind of the big issue there when you're looking at the draft versus free agency as insurance for Shady being suspended.
Mike Rodak covers the Bills for ESPN. He's right here with us on 104.5 The Team. You said salary cap. Next question, Mario Williams says he's willing to possibly come back for less money. Is there any scenario you see where Mario Williams returns to the Bills?
Yeah, if he accepts about a $1 contract. I can't see that happening at this point. I don't know what the motivation was behind Mario trying to say that. In the end, it might only hurt his cause a little bit more, because he's very soon here going to be on the open market. As soon as the Bills release him, he can sign anywhere else. Well, you don't want to lower your value on the open market by saying, I'll take a lower deal. I mean, that doesn't seem like the smartest move. So I'm not really sure why he did that. I know you mentioned family and, the brotherhood that he has on the team, and maybe he's getting sentimental about leaving that. But the reality is, I just never got the sense that Mario fit in very well in that locker room when I was there. I mean, I wasn't there his first year, but I have been there the last 3 years. And I know Ty Dunn talked to a player anonymously from Buffalo News who said that, Mario was more concerned about his RC cars and his farm equipment than kind of learning the defense. And that may or may not be true, but he's definitely a guy who made double basically than any other player made the last couple of years. And remember the old locker room the Bills had, he had his cooler in his locker that nobody else had, and just kind of I don't want to say a sensitive guy, but he just kind of did things on his own, and didn't really like to talk to the media, didn't really see him yucking it up too much with other players, is kind of very focused on his own thing, and that can be good for some guys, that can be bad for others. I just didn't get the sense that this brotherhood aspect that he mentioned was really something that was important to him. So it was strange all around for him to kind of mention the possibility of taking a pay cut and then kind of get sentimental about it. And in the end, I just don't see the Bills saying, we'll consider a pay cut. Let's get down to $10 million. No, I mean, that doesn't save them enough money really to make a big difference. I mean, they can save the full $13 million by just cutting him and moving on from all the distractions that he caused last year. And I think that's what they'll do.
I've seen it in 2 places now. RG3 could be a fit in Buffalo. Is that a realistic option?
I would say it's realistic in the sense that they could make it work, and he would be a guy who theoretically could fit. I want to discount the possibility. If it happened in 2 weeks, would I be surprised? No, not really. Do I think it's going to happen? I really don't. The problem here is money. I mean, EJ Manuel, whether he's on the team or not, is going to get paid his full salary. It's fully guaranteed. So unless they trade him, which I have a hard time seeing any team wanting to trade for him right now, especially given his guaranteed salary, that doesn't save you any money. So you kind of need to have him on your roster. Now, you can add a third guy, and they will add a third guy, but I think it's smarter to add a third guy through the draft. It's a good quarterback draft, maybe not at the very top, but throughout second, third, fourth round, you can find somebody. And they haven't drafted a quarterback since EJ Manuel, and they've only drafted 4 since Jim Kelly retired. So it makes sense to add a younger player and kind of groom him in your system the way you want him. RG3, he's younger, but there's a distraction that comes along with that. You're talking a higher price tag, unless he takes the minimum salary, which I don't see happening. You're going to have competition from other teams there. So I don't see it being a problem for them signing him. I just don't think there's enough confluence of circumstances here for it to happen in the way that the Bills would need it to.
104.5 The Team, joined by Mike Rodak. He covers the Buffalo Bills and a lot more for ESPN. Follow him on Twitter at Mike Rodak. Mike, the Charles Clay contract already getting redone. That's a little weird to me. What's going on with the tight end's contract?
Yeah, it's basically, I haven't seen the exact numbers yet because they haven't been filed yet with the union, but more than likely it's going to be his $10 million roster bonus, which was due in a couple weeks here at the start of the new league year, being converted into a signing bonus. And essentially that means he still gets all the $10 million up front. It just spreads against their salary cap for the next 4 years instead of counting all against this year. So instead of $10 million this year, it's going to be $2.5 million each of the next 4 years. That saves them $7.5 million this season. So not really surprising. Something that we've actually talked about since he signed that deal. The way it was structured, it seems like it was a no-brainer for them to do that. And I think it would have been a no-brainer for the Dolphins to do it too if they had matched the deal. So I'm not exactly sure why they structured it originally with the $10 million roster bonus. I know there was some talk of trying to deter the Dolphins from signing him because they had a big 2016 cap number with Sue and all that. Ended up being that the Bills had a bigger issue in 2016 and they needed to get this released by restructuring. So that's what ended up happening. Not a terrible surprise. The problem there, I think, is more just the deal in general. He's being paid a very large percentage of his deal in guaranteed money. It's about $25 million in guaranteed money. It's a lot for a guy who's a good player, but he's not a great player. You know, he's not Travis Kelce, he's not Gronk, he's not Tyler Eifert. So he's a good blocker. He works well in his system, but he's not a huge difference maker for an offense unless he gets better the next couple of years. And he also has a knee injury that was talked about in Miami. It deterred some teams who were looking at him last offseason, so that's something to keep in mind. And he's going to count now $9 million against their salary cap the next 3 years, 2017, 18, 19. And that's a lot of money for a guy who, again, is good but not great.
Mike Rodak joins us. Mike, Doug Whaley said that he's not feeling any extra pressure this year. Should he?
I think he should. I mean, it's always a strange question. I don't know if I would have personally asked that to him because I don't really know what he's going to say, but he should be feeling extra pressure. I mean, this could be his last year. This could be Rex Ryan's last year. I mean, there's very little guarantee that both of them are back after this season. I know Whaley signed an extension. Rex still has 3 years left after this year, but you go to 17 years without the playoffs, and if you don't get better 2 years in your system for Rex, and now it would be 3-4 years into the system for Whaley, you know, there's big questions that'll come up. Now it's still a matter of, you know, if they go 9-7 to miss the playoffs, and you know they showed some promise again, and you know I don't think people are getting fired, but they go 7-9, 6-10, 5-11, then I think you're talking about danger zone. So there's still a lot up in the air with this team. I could see them going 6-10. I mean, that's still not out of the question. I could see them going